Welcome to the RC Aerobatics podcast. Today on this episode we have Charlie Barrera, who is president of the Nsrca. The Nsrca governs the U.S. F3A Pattern community. We talk a little bit about his history, his tenure as president, FAI and F3A Pattern, the development of patterns, K-factor, upcoming rules discussions, and much, much more. I appreciate you being here, so please like and subscribe. Welcome to the RC Aerobatics podcast. We have with us today Charlie Barrera. Charlie is the NSRCA president, which governs and is in the background of Pattern and F3A. Welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Rich. It's good to be here.
Well, great. Why don't we start with just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, non-RC or RC. Just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been flying radio control since I've been in high school, and that was many, many years ago. I guess my first dabble into RC was a single-channel escapement with it was a Carl Goldberg, basically a model of a Cessna 172 single-channel, and it was a Vericomp escapement, and then not very successful with it. So then I proceeded, I bought my first digital proportional radio. It was an MRC proportional radio. Pretty expensive for the time. I bought it in 1970, and I kind of started really flying radio control at that time. I was taught by a Dr. Youngblood, who was the professor of nuclear engineering at Texas A&M University. I was a senior at A&M, and he was big into radio control model airplanes. And so he taught me the very rudimentary stuff that I've used all these years. I joined the Air Force, served for 6.5 years on active duty flying. And while I was in the Air Force, I picked up radio control model airplane again. I had put it aside for several years because of my career. And so one thing leads to another. I've done everything from giant scale, ducted fan back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then in late 90s, some friends of mine and I got interested in RC Aerobatics. Ali Saunier was a prominent club member of the club that I belonged to. He's since passed away, but he actually planted the seed. He was flying aerobatics. He never proceeded beyond intermediate before he did pass away, but he was instrumental in generating our interest. So I started flying in the late 90s. My first NATS was in 1998. I flew it was a 2-meter XS with a YS-120 retracts. A good flying airplane. It was a solid wing that you traditionally bolted on the bottom. And from there, I moved into. It wasn't very successful. I mean, I participated. It was quite a transition to be in front of judges, and so I wasn't very successful, needless to say. But it was fun, and I've since made a lot of friends because of that. So from there, I moved up into some bigger airplane, not bigger, but more sophisticated airplanes. Mike Harrison had a number of designs. The Rhapsody is one of the ones that I built and flew. That was a Mike Harrison design. I really liked that airplane. It had the lines that were just really pretty. So from there, proceeded into what we see now. And I have been flying RC Aerobatics since the late 90s.
Oh, very good. That's quite a history. It's uh, it's something that you've been around so long. When did you get started in the administration at NSRCA?
Actually, in 2015, I volunteered to be the secretary. I actually ran for the position. And so in 2015, I was elected into the secretary position. I served there for 4 years. 2019, I served as the vice president. And then in 2020, in the summer, it was around June time, then current president resigned, and so I volunteered to assume his position. We needed someone to lead the group, and so I became the president by appointment by the board of directors of the NSRCA. And then the end of 2020, I went ahead and formally ran for the position, and of course was elected. And so I've been president of the NSRCA since 2020.
Oh well, terrific. So you've been involved a good many years. I guess it's been a lot of changes throughout the past and early starting a pattern till now. What are the most recent changes you've seen in say in the last 5 years that have affected the sport?
Well, the most recent one is the approval of 12S batteries being used for AMA class competition. Um, there has been a lot of talk about approving the 12S batteries. Um, there's been pros and cons. So it was finally sent to the contest board, AMA contest board, and they just approved it. So this season, which is the 2022 season, will be the first year that we have 12S in AMA competition. FAI continues to require 10S batteries, and I'm not certain if they would ever change. They are making motions to do some changes, but I don't know if that would involve the 12S or not.
I gotcha. I gotcha. To, can you explain a little bit about the relationship between FAI and NSRCA? What the two different organizations are?
Well, FAI, of course, is an international organization, and
Hmm.
world pilots fly via FAI standards. So if we compete on the world stage, we must compete using FAI rules. And so that is, of course, weight and length and width restrictions, and also battery voltage restrictions, which is, I believe, 51 volts, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I may be mistaken. It's whatever the 10S. It's actually 42 volts. 43 volts is maximum. 51 is the 12S.
Gotcha.
Um, so if you compete in FAI, then you would be following, and I'm talking about USA competition. If you compete in FAI, then you would follow FAI standards, FAI by their judging standards and their rules. AMA pretty much follows FAI, but there are some differences between AMA and FAI.
Hmm.
For the most part, they're almost the same, but there are little, in fact, there's 17 differences between AMA judging standards and FAI judging standards. And I can speak about that here in just a minute.
Okay. Well, terrific. Yeah, I thought it was a good explanation on why we have the two different organizations. Why don't, if you don't mind, explain a little bit about what the NSRCA takes care of in the U.S.
Well, we're basically a special interest group, a SIG, the AMA,
Hmm.
Academy of Model Aeronautics. So the AMA, when it became the AMA, and it's been around since, gosh, I'd like to say the 40s or the 50s when they first started organizing, um, as interest groups developed, um, they started designating special interest groups or SIGs. You've got the free flighters, you've got the U control, you have the combat U control, uh, and of course you've got precision aerobatics, and that's what we are. So we are a precision aerobatics special interest group, precision aerobatics SIG.
Okay. Terrific. Terrific. And
when you get involved with that, I imagine the NSRCA has an influence on the AMA on rule changes and such as like the 12S change.
Yes, we do. There are certain aspects that, if we do want to have rule changes, that we have to submit to the AMA. And of course, they meet only certain times of the year, and it's a process.
Hmm.
It's not something that you just send an email and a week later you'll get
Yeah.
a response. It takes several weeks, if not months, to have a rule actually change.
Okay, and that's changed by a committee at AMA. Are there any NSRCA representatives on that committee?
Yes, in fact, several of the contest board representatives are NSRCA members, so they have our
Okay.
interests at hand. Not only that, but if they're not an NSRCA member, they were previous NSRCA member or have competed in precision aerobatics, so they understand what
Hmm.
uh, our rule requirement is.
Oh, okay, very good. Now I know I see the patterns come out every 2 years. Who develops the patterns for the lower classes, not the FAI, but the lower
Yeah.
classes in the
Well,
U.S.?
we do. Back in 2011, prior to that date, the AMA actually approved through the contest board what the sequence were or would be.
Hmm.
And we formed committees that would develop the sequences, they'd send it to the AMA, they would basically give their approval, send it back, and that's what we'd fly. In 2011, a rule change was sought and approved that
Hmm.
we would be charged totally with sequence development. So since then, we have done that. We have documents that specify the rules as to how they should be developed. Um, it begins with it is all four. It addresses all four classes, beginning with sportsman, and of course intermediate is next, advanced, and then of course masters. And each class is created so as to build from the previous class. In other words, an intermediate is not going to do a snap roll because in sportsman, basically all a sportsman has done is learn lines and radiuses, how to fly the airplane straight, how to fly the airplane trimmed. When you get into intermediate, now the emphasis is on that, and it just kind of further enhances that. Plus, now you begin rolls. You might begin a slow roll. You'll do it varies. The complexity of the maneuvers increases as you increase in class.
Oh, okay. So it'll give a pilot an opportunity to build a foundation and be able to, as he moves up the classes, feel comfortable in learning new
Yes,
maneuvers.
that's
All
correct.
right, very good. And so there's a committee who does that. How many is typically on that committee?
Uh, let's see. The sequence development committee we had, if I remember correctly, 7 members. Um, one member was a board member, an NSRCA board member, and that's by design. And the others were just members at large. And the way these committee members were picked were each district was represented because obviously we want everybody to be treated fairly, and so we wanted input from all over the U.S.
Oh, okay, terrific, terrific. Well, very good. The um, have you gotten any feedback on the current patterns as on what's on how people are taken to the patterns or
Well, it's funny you
at this
ask
point?
because part of the process is so last summer uh, the 2022-2023 sequences were published but not approved to the membership, and so they started flying them on their own as practice, and we got feedback stating that certain maneuvers weren't appropriate, certain maneuvers were too hard, certain maneuvers were too easy, that sort of thing. So we went back and we amended those maneuvers, and we came up with the final sequence that was finally approved, and that was approved in late summer, early fall, and it was published to the membership, and that's what we have now.
Oh, okay, terrific, terrific. And beyond the sequences and such, what other uh, processes and things does the NSRCA do to support the pattern community?
Well, we're the lobby group to the AMA for pattern related issues. So we represent our members to the AMA. Uh, One of the, obviously this 12S was one of those issues that
Mm-hmm.
we took feedback from our members. So you can see how that ties in. Besides that,
Mm-hmm.
the NSRCA plans and conducts the nationals, which is done every July. In fact, this year it's going to be in August. Uh, but that is with an AMA sanction. It is a Category 4 contest. I think that's correct. And so that gives it uh, national priority, so to speak.
Oh,
So,
okay.
okay, so that's one thing. All right, and then of course we maintain a website, and on that website you can see where different areas of the country uh, per district are conducting contests and the weekends that they're going to be conducting them, and it also publishes results for those contests. Um,
Okay.
the K Factor is our monthly newsletter magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It's small. I would hesitate to call it a magazine. It's more of a newsletter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and every district vice president, and there are 8 district vice presidents for each area of the country, plus a Canadian district vice president, and each DVP, they will publish an article just stating either general interest items, happenings in their district. Sometimes there's member articles that are published. Sometimes they will be building an airplane and they will give hints and kinks about a certain airplane. Um, so that's another function of the NSRCA is publishing of the K factor.
Okay. Terrific. Yeah, that's I read it cover to cover every month. That's something I look forward to for sure. Um, in in regards to challenges and initiatives that you guys, I mean, you just went through the 12S, and I'm sure that was a challenge to get all the information together and decide what to do and get it to the AMA. Do you have any current initiatives or challenges that you guys are working on or looking forward to for the upcoming future?
Um, it's been um, in the form of a proposal that the board is debating or discussing. Debate is not a good word. We're discussing right now.
I
Uh,
gotcha.
One of our district vice presidents feels that master's class uh, it's not appropriate to be flown by the members. And what he has proposed is to adopt the FAI pattern as the master's class. So that's something that's just now beginning, and we're discussing that. In fact, the
Mm-hmm.
last board meeting we had, which was earlier this month, that was a topic that was raised as new business, and that will continue because the current cycle for sequences ends in next year in 2023. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the process for developing sequences will begin the end of this year, actually probably mid-year this year, so as to have something by early next year for the members to uh, evaluate, and then we can sanction it by the end of next year for the following year use. So you can see how it's a long process in order to get these
Mm-hmm.
particular things approved. Um, we're not sure if this will work for us. One of the issues is that we have a sequence development document which specifies a specific K total for each class, and
Mm-hmm.
the K may not be coincident with the K that the FAIP is in masters. And if it's less K, then obviously it has to be amended so as to
Mm-hmm.
bring the K requirement up as specified by that particular document. So you can see there's still a lot of things that need to be discussed and need to be uh, resolved.
Right, absolutely. So the just to explain a little bit, the K factors you're talking about, these are weights put on each maneuver for their,
That's right.
I guess, complexity. Complexity. Okay.
That's correct.
So when you're talking about it, the K totals, you're talking about the adding all the maneuvers together and getting a total for the sequence so that they're all even across the board.
That's correct. So let's take, for example, in the sportsman class, which is the entry level class, maneuver is straight flight out, then half Cubanate, and a straight flight back. So the straight flight out is a K of 1. A half
Okay.
Cubanate is a K of 2 because you add the roll on the 45-degree downline on the return flight. And then the straight flight back is a K of 1. So that makes it a total of 4, a K of 4. Each one of
Okay.
those segments is considered a maneuver. Straight flight out, half Cuban, straight flight back. But now you get into the intermediate, and now you do a Cubanate. So you're basically building on the straight flight out in the entry.
Hmm.
You do the first leaf of the Cubanate with a roll, and then you come back around, you do the second leaf of the Cubanate with a roll, and then you exit. So that complexity increases the K to, and I'm not familiar if it's 3. Most likely it's probably a 3. I'm just guessing here.
Hmm.
All right, so that
Okay.
that particular K is added to the next maneuver. So the next maneuver, let's say it's a half square loop with a half roll in the vertical to a upright exit. That would most likely be a 2 also. And once again, I'm not accurate on the actual K value, but for
Hmm.
example's sake, I'm just saying that, okay, so now you've got a K of 2 that's been added. You've got a certain number of maneuvers that need to be done that is specified by the sequence development document. At the end
Hmm.
of those maneuvers, you've got a total K, and that either meets or doesn't meet the criteria that's specified on the document. And then, of course, it's massaged so as you do have the correct K. Going into advanced, you
Gotcha.
start adding elements to these same maneuvers. It makes it a little more complex. You might start a Cubanate from the top with a pushover,
Right.
that sort of thing. So you can see, and so it's that uh, building block perspective that we use to develop all of the sequences, and
Okay.
then you get
Very
the
good.
case, and then you get the case based on that.
Hmm. Well, let me ask you this. I've heard or seen the class, and I don't know that I know what it is. The FAI Silver. Is
Yes.
that similar to what the Masters would be if they are they flying the P
There's a lot of
for
guys.
FAI?
There's a lot of guys. They prefer to fly FAIP only at a local contest, and this has been left up as a local option by the CD that's conducting the contest. So this FAI Silver is actually an unofficial class, even though we do. For those districts that choose to do it, we do award a district champion an FAI Silver. Many times, the master's class is more difficult than the FAIP class. But then you have pilots that choose to learn the FAIP but don't want to learn the FAIF because the FAIF is extremely difficult in some cases. So you can see that masters might be a little too hard for them. FAIF
Hmm.
is certainly too hard for them, so they choose to do the P pattern. And in those districts that choose to have this silver pattern, it as I mentioned, it is a local option according to what the CD decides, and we, the NSRCA, honor those decisions, and we have district champions for the silver class.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, I'd always seen it and seen guys fly it, but didn't know what that meant. Kind of thinking of the future here. Where do you see the NSRCA in 5 years? Do you see any major changes or surges or declines or just what is your crystal ball 5 years from now with COVID and everything else going on? Where do you see the NSRCA?
Well, I hope that we continue as we have. We've been very stable. Last year, our members total were about 370. At one time, we were over 1,000 members. We had quite a few members. This is back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it has slowly dwindled. A lot might be because of varying interests have gone away from radio control model airplanes. A lot of it might be drawn away because of drones, that sort of thing. So the objective, I know I've made it my objective to try and increase our numbers, to try and give us more visibility to local clubs, because that's where the members would come from. The district vice presidents are charged with whatever they can do to enhance precision aerobatics in their respective districts. You might notice we've kind of done a publicity campaign, so to speak. You might remember the banners. You might remember seeing the banners at local
Absolutely.
contests. We're just trying to get a little more visibility, trying to explain to those that do show up for these contests what the NSRCA is, and we'd like to encourage them to join the NSRCA. And so I think we're going to be okay. It's just going to be a matter of accepting the fact that it's never going to be as big as it once was, but I don't think we're going to get any smaller than what we might be now.
Okay, terrific, terrific. Let me ask you a personal question. What does pattern or just aerobatics, RC aerobatics in general, mean personally to you?
Well, I kind of got tired of just boring holes in the sky. I kind of wanted to have an objective to my radio control flying, not unlike my professional career. I didn't want to just go out to the field, fuel up the airplane, and then just fly round and round. Not really doing anything special. So when I learned about precision aerobatics, it taught me a discipline to learn how to fly correctly and also to learn how to fly well. And some of the maneuvers that I first tried were of course difficult because you had to do them with some degree of precision. But as time
Yeah,
progressed, it made me a much better flyer.
yeah, I certainly would agree with that. Well, that's terrific. Also, in the leadership role, what are your plans for the future with that? Are you interested in staying in leadership or back in flying, or what is your long-term plans?
I would like to just be one of the guys again. I've been an officer of the NSRCA for, let's see, this is my 7th year, and this is, uh, I serve a 2-year term as president. So I hope to step down at the end of this year, and hopefully there'll be someone that will be willing to take the reins, so to speak. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been in in this officer position for some time, and I just want to be one of the guys. Just show up to the
I
field,
hear you.
uh, charge my batteries, and go out and fly.
Very good, very good. I think you've certainly well earned in that regards. Let me ask you this for someone who may be listening to this and hasn't really been exposed to pattern or the pattern world. What's the best way for them to get started and find information on pattern?
Well, they can go to our website, which is nsrca.us, and you can look on that website. And of course, there's links that says new to pattern. It also tells you about what district you would be in if you were to join the NSRCA. It also tells you what contests are in your area, and it would certainly you could easily find a contest that's in the Houston area. I think we have something like 7 contests throughout the year that are within an hour of driving distance from most places in Houston. Where I live in
That's
Conroe, which
terrific.
is about 40 miles northwest of Houston, and so you can see
Hmm.
that it is. it is easy to find local contests and just try it out. You don't have to have any special equipment. Just take your sport airplane, uh, uh, fly sportsman class, take a look at what the sequences are, familiarize yourself with them, practice them at your practice field, and then just show up. There's guys there that are more than willing to help. I know at all of the local ones that I go to here in this area, there's several of us that have been in this for so many years that we're more than happy to help newcomers.
Well, terrific. Terrific. Well, look, I won't take any more of your time. I really appreciate you spending this time with us and telling us a little bit about the NSRCA and pattern. Is there any final thoughts or anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, we've done quite a few things to enhance membership in the NSRCA. The newest item that has been created is the NSRCA Hall of Fame. We just approved that. The board just approved it this month of January, excuse me, and it is endorsed by the AMA. We've coordinated with the AMA, and what it does is it will have inductees who have been instrumental in the precision aerobatics world. And it will go back to our very first president, Joe Briddy. I hope to have him as one of our initial inductees. And then some of the other greats, such as Ron Chigi and people such as that have been in this aerobatics world for so many years and have contributed so much. They basically made us who we are. So that's the first thing. We're enhancing our website. Within the next few weeks, you're going to see a whole new revamped website, and hopefully it will be very interesting to go on it, and it'll be easier to navigate. So there's a number of things that we're working on as part of the NSRCA Board of Directors.
Well, that's actually very exciting. Really appreciate your time and showing us all this great information, and hopefully we'll get some people to come try out some pattern. I'll have all the links down in the comments below, and everybody will be able to get to anything that was noted in the video. And once again, I appreciate your time, Charlie, and you have a great day.
You bet, Rich. You bet. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. A very special thanks to my good friend John Gros, who wrote the song Deep in the Mud that is used as the show bumper music. Check him out on his website, www.johnpapagros.com. A link is in the show notes. See you at the next episode.